to Carolina?
I
Or
went
is
back.
it done?
I went back once, about 10 years ago, when Christian Blackwood wanted to do a documentary on Eartha Kitt. And he didn't tell me what he was going to do. He just called me up one morning and says, we're leaving this afternoon for South Carolina. And I was, you know, like this, scared to death. I went, and we were looking for my mother's grave. I remember that scene so well, my mother's grave, because as you know, my mother was murdered by the two stepdaughters of hers when she married this man. And he was the one that said, I don't want that yellow gal in my house, and that was the reason my mother gave me away. But after we went to several churches, and I remember vaguely in my mind approximately where this church was, because across the highway was the white man's plantation. And we went to the church, and a black man came into the yard. And we asked, Christian said to him, do you know this lady? And he said, oh, yes. I know that face. I knew that face before she knew her face. And he said, where was she born? Was she born? And he said, no, 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 no. They came in from another area. And that's why, as I told you before, it's very complicated as to where I was born exactly. But so I don't want to go back. I keep saying I don't want to go back south, but I don't know.
Yeah. You have a great line in this documentary where this man comes over and you're in the car and he called Cousin Eartha. It's so good. And you're looking at him with this great look as if to say, now you know, you are so full of that I don't even know why you over here. And when he walks away, you say, you know, he didn't want to know me when I was a kid.
That's right.
But you know,
they spat on me and they called me yellow gal. Even the first day I went to school, they took my little lunch basket and spat in it. And then one of the kids took me behind one of the graveyard tombstones, you know, because the school is in the next to the church and the graveyard is in the middle. So 2 or 3 kids took me behind the tombstone and was, you know, mutilating or beating me up. And the other kids were taking my lunch and spitting it, and then they handed it back to me.
Gotta shake your hand one more time.
Okay.
Would it be possible for me to hug my big sister? I love you, girl. God knows it.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Okay, take care of Mama.
Got it?
Okay. My half-sister is no more related to me than I am to the man in the moon. His father was the one that said, I don't want that yellow gal in my house. But I mean, he was a child. What did he know? And they've gotten things mixed up. They think that my mother was their mother. My mother was not their mother. My mother was their stepmother. But since all the families are so mixed up down here, nobody knows who's whom anymore. Isn't that funny? They hated me when I was a kid. Now all of a sudden everybody loves me. Doesn't that make you want to cry?
The Whoopi...
Well, the thing that always it doesn't get me anymore, but it used to get me all the time, is people would come up and they say, you're so articulate. And they would articulate it to you as though you somehow weren't going to get it. They say, you're so articulate. Why? And I would say, well, why wouldn't I be? I mean, I went to school. You know, I have a learning experience. I mean, but I can't imagine not being able to try to make my way here. Now you and Dorothy Dandridge and all those folks that came before, there wasn't really an outlet for you to go and explore who and what you wanted to do in this area.
Especially if you're mulatto. Because you see, and particularly now in these modern times, you have to look a certain color on the television and in the movies. We did I did a film with Sammy Davis Jr., Ana Lucasta. I was in the running for Academy Award. 2,500 cinemas of the United States of America wouldn't take it because I didn't look black enough on the screen, making love to a black man. And there was things that everybody said.
But then they weren't going to let you in the front door either, because maybe you were too black. You know, I mean, you can't win.
Right. I know, because when I first started with Catherine Dunham Ballet Company now in Las Vegas, my dear, we, as beautiful a dancers as we were, could come through the kitchen and go on stage and knock ourselves out, you know, doing all of our wonderful things, could not come through the front door. So when I became the hot thing in the United States and all over the world, my contract said, at Las Vegas particularly, I will not work in front of a segregated audience. I used to go to Dorothy Dandridge when she was there at the same time I was. She was working at the Last Frontier or one of those frontier. I went to Dorothy. Now, Dorothy's the same color I am. And I said, Dorothy, we have to go downstairs and just walk through the lobby. She said, no, I can't do that. I don't want to be embarrassed. I said, if you're not going to take the chance of being embarrassed, we'll never be able to get us to be walking through the front door. Now, I had a special situation there because of Belden Catwoman, who owned his own place.
Right.
It was not syndicated in any way. So no matter what I wanted to do, well, I didn't pay any attention to this prejudice thing. I didn't even think about it. I would go to the tables with money that Belden Catwoman gave me. He would give me $200 a night to go to the gambling table. I'd put 100 in my bosom, and then what I put on the table. You know, I've never refused except at the Sands Hotel.
Really?
Where Sammy Davis was working and Frank Sinatra and all of those guys were working there. And I went to the Sands Hotel, not even thinking about it, and I went to the gambling table and put $1 down. I'm not a gambler, but I just put $1, and then finally the management came over and said, we wish that you wouldn't do that, Eartha. I thought it was marvelous. I said, oh, aren't they very concerned that we are hardworking artists? They don't want us to waste our money. It got back to Belden Catwoman that I was rejected at the gambling table, and he went with Joe E. Lewis, the comedian. Right. He went up there with his boys, and he said, anything that woman wants to do, and all up and down the strip. If she's not allowed to do that, go into any place, you have to come and talk to me. But you see, that put Belden Catwoman in a very bad position, because then when Belden was burned out, the El Rancho was burned down. We still don't know until this day why it was burned down. That put me in a very bad position for the rest of the hotels, because I was considered the favorite girl of the most important guy on the strip. Right. So it was difficult for me to get jobs in the other clubs there. But it all worked. It's like going to South Africa, and what my daughter Kit and I did, walking through the streets of South Africa, begging for rands, money. We won one autograph for $1. We got 2 schools built. One just outside of Durban and the other one outside of Johannesburg. Right. But you see, that's good news. But you did make a big thing in the American newspaper at that luncheon with the Johnsons. Did you scare them? What happened? Well, you know, it's something like what Perot has done today, but it was in a much bigger way than because nobody was doing it. Now, first of all, people thought that I was invited to the White House to sing my song, Santa Baby, I Want to Be Evil, Old-Fashioned Girl. That was not the case at all. I work with a lot of kids here in Watts, as you know, and those kids now that I was working with are now grown up, and they are working with the kids to help get them off the street. Anyway, I got 5 areas of Washington cleaned up because of that kind of thing. I knew what was happening to the poverty money, et cetera, because a group called Rebels with a Cause came to the theater when I was doing Hour on the Pussycat and told me and showed me. And I went and knocked on the door of, quote unquote, the House of Parliament. Anyway, we got this area cleaned up. So that's why I was reported to Mrs. Johnson as one of the people who help correct situations, working with the underprivileged. Anyway, 50 of us women were invited there to give our opinions as to why there is so much juvenile delinquency in the streets of America. Right. That was the question. Right. I kept raising my hand. Every time somebody said something, I raised my hand. Mrs. Johnson was saving me for last, it seems. Oh, first of all, I want you to know President Johnson was not supposed to be there. But everybody was wondering if he's coming. It was like waiting for Cary Grant, you know. Coming, is he not coming? And all of a sudden the walls of Jericho opens up, and here comes President Johnson with cameras in back of him, you know. He puts his arm on the rostrum. He actually, I swear to God, cross my heart and hope to die if I'm not telling you the truth. The man said, I want you all to know how fortunate it is that you are all here today to have lunch with the world's most important family. I would like you to go back to your communities and tell your communities what a wonderful family you have here in the White House. I'm not lying. I'm telling you the truth, Whoopi. May the gods strike me dead if I'm not telling you the truth. Anyway, finally, Women were getting up and they're saying this and that. Oh, isn't it marvelous to put flowers on the windowsills of poverty? They didn't say those in that word, but this is actually what they were saying. Put a Band-Aid on the problems of the United States, and I kept raising my hand. Finally, I got up on the floor. And I don't remember exactly, but the Washington Post has the most important isms of what I said. They were more correct in what I said. And I said things like what the kids had been saying to me. The kids who had been running away from the United States, going into Canada, going into Sweden, going into Germany, going into France, wherever they were, they came to me. And they told me what their feelings were. They did not feel that it was right for us to be involved in Vietnam, and therefore they love America, but they did not believe in that situation and they didn't want to be involved. That's why they said it paid to be a bit bad, because if you're a bad guy, you don't get sent to Vietnam. You are considered an undesirable. You don't get the gun put in you. Anyway, all of these things that I was saying to Mrs. Johnson. Also, Whoopi, I said to her, we were taught to hate the Germans because we had to fight that war. We were taught to hate the Koreans because we had to fight that war. We were taught to hate the Vietnamese because, et cetera, et cetera. We were taught to hate the Japanese. When the wars were over, you didn't tell us not to hate them. You didn't retrain us. And then on top of all of that, you took the industry out of the United States and gave the American jobs to the enemy. How can you possibly expect us to accept that when you never told us any differently? And now you're telling us that we're a problem? And we came home from these wars without a job? And look at the Gulf War. These boys came home and didn't even find practically enough money to pay their mortgages. And they're considered undesirables. The boys who came back from Vietnam were not even considered first-class citizens when they came back. They were hated, undesirables. And you are now telling us that we should love one another without jobs? You tell us that we should be good without jobs? That you gave to what you told us was the enemy? What are we supposed to do now? Walk the streets? That's what they were doing. Well, I mean, I may be exaggerating a little bit now, because every time I think about it, I just get so angry and annoyed inside about what that government, these governments are doing to us as American citizens. My country 'tis of thee, as the man said on the boys who came back from the Vietnamese wars. Great land of bigotry. What happened? Why aren't we correcting these situations? When you bring foreigners into the country, the Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Japanese, and they're walking all over us in our jobs, and you expect us to be nice, sweet, loving people. When the community is being broken apart. Now the taxes are so high that both parents have to work, and we are latchkey kids. What do you expect of the children?
Now you said this to this woman sitting. I'm just trying to picture her face. Did she just keel over in a dead faint?
I didn't notice.
After you told her this?
But the lady got up to defend the situation. Now, I was talking, not as I'm talking to you now, but I was very calm. Believe me, I prepared myself to be very, very, the kind of characters you played in Miss Sister, whatever that is. The sister acting, you know, nice, sweet little girl at the dinner table, blah, 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 blah. And anyhow, one lady got up way over in the corner of the room. And she said, Miss Kitt, I'll have you know, I have 8 sons, and I would be glad to donate each one of them to Vietnam. I said, how can I talk to you? But she was defending Mrs. Johnson. I think Mrs. Johnson got up and she said, just because there's a war going on does not mean that we should not behave in a civilized manner, meaning that we should not behave, or the whole country should not behave in a civilized manner. Now, within 2 hours, according to my CIA dossier, that also says it is rumored that she is a sadistic sex nymphomaniac.
Who, you or Mrs. Johnson?
Maybe both of us, but I'm the only one that's on the CIA list.
Well, wait a minute. Let me throw the commercial. We'll come back. Wait, we'll be right back and find out all about this dish, honey. We'll be right back with Eartha Kitt. A sadistic what? Baby, we're back. We are back with Eartha Kitt. We were just talking about who was the nympho sex maniac in the CIA's folder on Eartha. Was it Lady Bird Johnson or was it Linda? What CIA folder, what does that all come from? All from this luncheon?
Yep. Jack Anderson called me in January 1974. I remember it very well because I was packing up the car to take my daughter and the big St. Bernard dog up to the mountains with a friend of my daughter's. And the phone rang, and it was Seymour Hersh from the New York Times, who was asking me permission to print what they had found. And he told me what he found. He said, what I'm sending you, he sent me a bit of it.
Right.
It was only a smidgen of what the CIA had on me. Now, the way they put you out of work, of course, Lyndon Bird Johnson called the networks across the nation, the media in general, all the medias, and said, I don't want to see that woman's face anywhere, because he was escalating the wars, obviously, it seems to me. And according to my dossier, at the bottom of the page, it says, specifically requested by Lyndon Bird and Lady Bird Johnson. He sent out the FBI to go out to the venues that I had been working in or that I might be working in, because every place that I ever worked in always had a return engagement clause in it. And if the FBI is on the doorsteps of these venues, you know, then you are considered a problem.
Right.
Well, they came back with good news and said she happens to love her country and she's perfectly willing to fight for it from the inside.
Right.
As a matter of fact, she's a good, clean American citizen. She's never even been arrested for anything. But that was good news. So he sends out the CIA. And the CIA, obviously, interviews people whom you had worked with.
Right.
And, of course, you can interview a million people, and there's always somebody who's going to come back with, she's a bitch, she's shrewd, she's mean, she's difficult, she's a drunk, she's a this, she's a that. It's on the dossier.
All from this conversation?
All from that conversation. And that's how they put you out of work, because these venues do not want the CIA or the FBI on their doorsteps. So you're out of work.
So, an
gradually,
opinion.
and as a matter of fact, Whoopi, the Ambassador Hotel, I had a contract there about 3 weeks later, and suddenly they couldn't find the contract. It was a signed contract on both parties' side. All of a sudden, the agents don't want to know you. Even your friends don't want to know you. Nobody calls. I was up there in my house in La Colina Drive, wondering what happened. So, eventually, I never left this country. I never will leave this country. I love this country. Basically, I love what America stands for. She has a lot of problems, and I'm perfectly willing to help her solve her problems. And I'm not afraid to open my mouth, even though you get your face slapped. But I went to Europe and different places, like South America, Australia, anywhere that I could find work. And until this day, you still don't know who is remembering and said, well, like my mother-in-law said, yes, Eartha, I believe what you said. I agree with what you said, but did you have to say it? Even my girlfriends who have sons that were about to be at an age to be sent to Vietnam, they were at an age to be sent to Vietnam, who said to me, I think you should apologize to our friends because of what you did. I said, why? Don't you have sons? Do you want your sons to go to Vietnam?
But what exactly was it that you did? See, I still don't get...
Get out of Vietnam. What are we doing there?
Ah.
Bring the boys home.
Yeah.
We want to build our country from the inside again. As a matter of fact, what the politicians, all of these politicians, Clinton, Perot, all of them are saying exactly the same thing I told them in 1968. You take the industry out of this country and you're going to have a big problem because everybody in this country is going to be without a job and they're going to wonder what happened. You can find billions of dollars to go to the Gulf.
Yeah.
How can't you find billions of dollars to take care of the poor people in this country? Why are we walking the streets? A lot of those boys who went to wars and fought for this country. Without jobs.
So they blacklisted you.
Honey, that was a whitelisting. That wasn't a blacklisting.
Well, that's true. It was a whitelisting.
That's right.
10
Cannot
years?
find work. Over 10 years. I didn't return to the Broadway stage until about 1979, 1980, when I did the last Broadway show I did was Timbuktu.
Timbuktu.
Yes.
How do you not be better?
Well, I'm very much of a fatalist. I know some people think I'm bitter, and maybe in some respects I am bitter. And maybe in very many ways I'm very angry. Because this is my country, and we are entitled to fight for it from the inside. And sometimes I think, what happened? I thought my country said we have freedom from oppression, freedom from hunger, freedom of expression. You can speak your mind. As long as you're not hitting anybody over the head with a baseball bat. You're entitled to speak your mind. We don't want to be on welfare. We want jobs. I want to have dignity and respect for myself And this is what I feel about every one of us in the United States as well as the rest of the world. But if you're going to pay people to stay poor, why not stay poor?
Yeah.
And if you get a job, if the job pay is as much as you can get from the welfare, you don't have to pay taxes on the welfare money, but you have to pay taxes on the money that you get from a job.
That's it.
That's it.
And you not only do you have to pay taxes, but then you buy the things that we're going to show you in this commercial break. And then we'll be right back with Eartha Kitt.
If I'm bitter or if I'm angry, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't analyzed myself so inwardly to say, yes, I'm bitter, yes, I'm angry, yes, I know I'm disappointed, terribly disappointed, particularly in my own country that threw me out of work in this country for over 20-some-odd years, or whatever the figure might be, and put me out of work.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of lucrative years. And then the disappointing thing, too, is that the American public and I did not have a chance to grow up together.
Yeah.
And they thought that I had either gotten out of the business,
Right.
I died, or I had moved to Paris or moved to some foreign country. So no, I never left America, and I have no intentions of leaving the United States. But what goes around comes around.
Shall we toast to that?
Yep, here we are, darling.
Here's to life.
And I don't know anyone yet who's done me wrong, that the karma did not work.
Ooh. Yes. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Honey, with you, I'll hang out anytime. And I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good night. See you tomorrow. And good night, Donna, wherever you happen to be.
This is the day that Batman returns. Opens in theaters around the country, brings Catwoman back to battle it out with Batman. Julie Newmar and Lee Merriweather brought Catwoman to life back in the 1960s when the TV series was such a big hit. And so did the fabulous Eartha Kitt, who is such a talented performer and who many people say should be playing Catwoman in the new movie. Eartha joins us now by phone from Queensland, Australia, where she's currently singing in her own one-woman show. Nice to have you with us, Eartha.
Thank you.
Good. That unmistakable voice of Eartha Kitt. Yeah.
Eartha?
You must have loved that, Eartha, huh?
Eartha?
Oh, yes, I had tremendous fun with that part.
Okay. Here's Lee Merriweather. Hold on.
It's just such a treat to even get to meet you across so many miles. I
I'm
adore
only
you. I'm a
27 hours away from you, and I'm missing home. I'm going to be there next week.
Oh, God.
And the Batman is going to be opening here, probably Friday as well. Is it going to be opening in America as well there?
Yes, it's opening. Yes, today actually. When this.
Well, I guess it's opening around the world at the same time. It must be.
Eartha, were you surprised when you played Catwoman in the second season? I mean, did they?
No, why should I be surprised? The part was mine anyway.
Ah.
I just think that everybody thinks that I'm a cat anyhow, so I just went in and did my thing. I didn't even have to think about the character. It was me.
We just heard her. Lee, let's hear yours.
Mine was a very subtle purr, but what I had to do at one point was something that I'd taken from my childhood, listening to cats making love on the fence in our backyard.
That's not what they do.
But it's...
Now I know.
Live that down.
Now I know what that sound means. Julie, okay. We've heard Eartha, we've heard Lee. Here's the Julie Newmar purr.
Well, you have to take a very deep breath. And I prefer to have your ear right near my nose here.
Oh.
Like this.
Here's something very funny. Eartha,
Yes?
this is quite remarkable. You have never seen yourself play Catwoman?
No, I haven't. Every time it was going to be shown, I either had to go downstairs to do my work, or I've seen other people do the character. As a matter of fact, I saw Julie Newmar here the other day. And I thought maybe one of these days while I'm in the area, they will be showing mine, but they haven't gotten to that segment yet. But now what does Michelle Pfeiffer's meow sound like?
Oh, I wish I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you wish you could do that, right?
I'm so envious of that. Oh,
I get the feeling you came out of the cradle with that sound, Eartha. What did you think of Adam West as Batman? Eartha?
Well, he was Batman. I think he was playing the character as the character was written.
Right.
And I had a lot of fun playing with them because they were as the characters were that I read about in the cartoons.
Right. Lee, what did you
So
think
I
of?
thought they were good for the character.
He was incredible. He was able to tread that fine line between reality and comedy and farce so beautifully. He's a very underrated actor. He's brilliant. I've seen him on stage. I've seen him in other, films, television. I think he's wonderful.
Julie?
I think you're right. He didn't carry the character into being corny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
But he was that way off stage.
He was?
He was Batman off stage, Joe. He was the perfect Batman. Keaton can't compare. I think Keaton is too diffident for Batman. I think Batman just saw it and went right to it,
Yes, and now guess what? Look behind you, Catwoman. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam West. All right. We'll be back after